Hi, and welcome to this episode of Mini Trauma Recovery Talks. We are kicking off the Pathway to Trauma Recovery authors interviews. And I tell you, you're going to be able to glean so much information and insight from our amazing, amazing authors that have so courageously opened up their trauma story or their trauma journey, and then also how they overcame that specific trauma. And we talk about it as we talk about the different types or different forms of trauma, oftentimes the issue is that we're not even aware that we have suffered a trauma. Yes, we know something awful, something horrific happened, but we don't realize how it actually changed us, and how it affects different people at different times, in different ways. Our our trauma recovery is just as unique as our fingerprints. So oftentimes, depending on how you were raised, what type of environment you came from, whether you received a lot of nurturing and the love in the formative years, depending on how your body receives trauma or has been affected by it, will determine how you move forward in your life. Take, for instance, chapter one, A Family Secret. I talk about, and that is my chapter. I am the lead author for this Pathway to Trauma Recovery project. Okay, in my chapter one, A Family Secret, the impact of unresolved trauma. Okay, and so this was my experience, and I'm able to leave within these pages how I was able to utilize different modalities, different techniques, different self-help, self-care plans to put myself back into realignment, right? Because when trauma happens, I often talk about the kaleidoscope and how the pieces are fragmented, and we go so deep as to look inside of ourselves, the mind, body, soul, the whole connection, mind, body, spirit, soul connection, right? And how that can fragment. And when that's distorted or that's not connected, we don't get the best outcome. And we're not able to live our best life or live in our best life or perform in the best way possible. So I'm going to dive a little bit into my chapter now, which is chapter one. This chapter dives into my complex and emotional life journey, marked by family secrets, trauma, and the pursuit of recovery and transformation. It touches upon themes of abuse, identity, relationships, and the resilience of the human spirit, right? I share a powerful narrative of my experiences, including witnessing a traumatic event as a child, growing up with a family of secrets, and the emotional impact of such hidden truths. It also in my chapter, it highlights the importance of self-discovery and personal growth in overcoming adversity. And I tell you, when you look and you listen to my chapter, you read my chapter, I go through, I talk about experiencing and what it's like for an infant to experience trauma from the womb. So in my case, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. That means one trauma happens, no resolve, next trauma happens, no resolve, next trauma happens, and it's complex. So it's compound trauma on top of trauma. And think about it, when we talk about, and I'm going to go deep into soul fragmentation in the upcoming episode, but when we talk about our bodies, our soul, our minds being fragmented, I didn't understand what that meant until I was introduced to these types of I guess I want to say impact, the type of impact that trauma has on us. And oftentimes we just think this is how life is. As you go through life and you make a decision and ooh, wrong decision, or you make a decision, bad outcome. Ooh, and then another one, then another one, then another one. And if you think about it, if you continue to make decisions based off of a fragmented soul, you are not making decisions based off the whole of you, right? Inside, I talked about in a couple of episodes, we have an inner child, inner adult, inner adolescent. And when we've been traumatized, that panic button, right? That stress hormone, that stress response is always on high. So we have that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn always sitting there, ever present, right? So let's go back into the story a little bit. So I talk a little bit about my mother and domestic violence and how that's how I was introduced into trauma was via domestic violence. She was being abused while I was forming inside of her, right? Talk about all of the stress hormones, the cortisol that is pushed into a baby, or that is the baby is surrounded by that unhealthy environment, right? A stressful environment. I talk about in my chapter a little bit about Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. And he highlights the importance of early experiences in shaping an individual's identity and ability to form healthy relationships, right? I want us to sit with that a little bit, because if we only know fear, if we don't know safety, then how are we to go through life making sound decisions if everything is fear? If you're constantly, you wake up to fear, you go to sleep to fear, and it even attacks you in sleep. Because for many years, until I learned how to re-regulate, until I learned how to realign, until I was introduced to all of the different modalities to help me to recover, I wasn't going through life in a healthy manner, right? So we're talking about, and I hope some of you can identify with that or see this in yourself. Why are you making the decisions that you're making, and the outcomes are coming up short, if you will, right? Traumatic events during childhood, such as witnessing violence and experiencing emotional abuse, can significantly impact a person's development, right? So we look all prettied up and we looked all, adultified, if you will, and we still have that a fear, afraid, or that fear, that little child inside of us that still is afraid and stuck until the adult. Now, once we're recovered, the adult in us now stands up and lets the child know, I'm good. We're good. I'm going to be here. I'm not going to abandon you. It's called reparenting, right? I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love you out of that fear, right? In my case, the trauma I witnessed at a young age left deep scars, affecting my self esteem, relationships, and decision making. Erikson's theory emphasizes the need for positive experiences and supportive relationships during each stage of development. When trauma disrupts these stages, individuals may struggle to achieve healthy psychosocial development. Okay. My journey illustrates the devastating effects of unresolved trauma and family secrets on a person's life. My transformation and pursuit of realignment and recovery serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Erikson's theory provides insight into the lasting impact of early trauma, emphasizing the importance of addressing and recovering from such experiences to achieve healthy psychosocial development. And I stayed on that path. And I loved when I learned about Erikson's theory, because it just explained a lot of things to me. Oftentimes we don't understand, and we just are walking through life, going along to get along in silent suffering. And I'm here to tell you there is a way to move past that and get into a healed perspective. But don't get me wrong, you can recover, right? You will, once you recover, you will still need to practice self-care and practice relapse prevention, because in an instant, if you're not careful, you're not taking care of yourself. I know for me, overwhelm, that is an issue that will trigger me right back if I allow myself to get overwhelmed. So I have to practice self-care every single day, right? And then some people say that's a lot of work. But what I say is, if it's a lot of work to stay in that mode of being full of anxiety and full of fear, when you can actually live a life more peaceful, a life with more serenity, a life accepting and enjoying your relationships, right? I want to talk a little bit about the different stages that Erikson, he and I mapped that out in my chapter as well. But he talked about early childhood. Early childhood is infancy to 18 months. That's where you establish trust versus mistrust, right? And you're gonna have to get the book to actually get more information and more detail into it. But I'll give you the headlines here. Early childhood is 18 months to 3 years. That's when you develop autonomy versus shame and doubt, right? So if you're in an unhealthy environment, it will be easy for you to move into mistrust or move into shame and doubt versus trust and then autonomy, right? Preschool, that's ages 3 to 5 years old, you develop initiative versus guilt, right? And that's when we think about how do we take care of ourselves, right? And where do we develop the sense that we should or should not take care of ourselves? Or oftentimes I talk about people pleasing, and people pleasing is Lisa Nichols talked about it when talked about she talked about your cup and your saucer. And people pleasers give out of their cup until their cup is depleted. When you're walking in a healthy state of being, you're giving out of your saucer. That means you're giving out of the overflow without guilt, without shame, just understanding that once you take care of yourself, then you can be better for somebody else. But if you're not taking care of yourself and you're depleting yourself, now you have two unhealthy people working together. And that's why a lot of times relationships don't work, because you have two unhealthy people that don't even understand or see their own issues. That's why a big part of recovery is acknowledging and becoming aware that I talk about it all the time. Trauma is not your fault. However, recovery, that's your responsibility. And that's what we're talking about in the recovery, right? Let's continue. School age 6 to 11. That's when you develop industry versus inferiority, right? And a lot of us suffer the inferiority complex. And man, I'll tell you, that can be disruptive and very destructive in relationships. Adolescence, 12 to 18 years, identity versus role confusion, right? And that's where we develop these unhealthy relationships, because we don't develop these boundaries, because there's a role confusion and we don't really realize what our role is, right? As I continue my studies, I developed an understanding of the generational impact of trauma, because it is passed down, right? It is passed down from generation to generation. How do you operate? If you operate out of fear, I'll give an example. My mom operated out of fear because of what she suffered. And guess what I was taught? I was taught to fear. And I tell you, it's very challenging to go through life with that, walking on eggshells in every situation. That is tiring, right? It's tiring and it's very, very unhealthy. Okay. I further began to understand why I saw life through a different lens, and that was a trauma lens, and how unresolved trauma has a generational impact on my family. Trauma passed down from one generation to the next can perpetuate cycles of abuse, dysfunction, and emotional distress. Breaking these cycles through awareness, recovery, realignment, and support is essential. Now, I'm going to leave you with a cliffhanger, because the very next paragraph says, boom, bang, crash, screams. Yes, did you feel that? What just happened? We were talking about support, awareness, and breaking cycles. Wait, I'm confused. Yes, life happens. And it's just like that. Life happens. And I'm going to leave you there, because there's more and more and more to my chapter. But I just wanted to give you a taste of what you're going to get in the pathway to trauma recovery. My adulthood, I talk about that too, about how it encompassed recovery, realignment, and transformation. And now my ability to be able to open up and talk with you all about what I've learned, how I've learned it, the journey I've taken, so that you can now form your own journey of realignment through trauma, right? And that's why I became a coach, because I did not receive, and I have nothing against therapy. I did not receive the profound insight until I actually stepped in the side of learning what all this meant, until I had many coaches, and I have many coaches now. And you need that supportive system around you. No man's an island. I had to come out of thinking that I could do it all alone, because that is not possible. That's not the way we were created. That's not the way God designed us. We are designed to be in community. I did a podcast a little bit ago about isolation being kryptonite. Isolation is absolute kryptonite when you are in recovery and you're walking through your recovery journey. We need one another. So here's what I've learned. I've learned resilience in the face of adversity. I've learned the value of alternative medicine. I've learned powerful empowerment, and how empowerment through education is so vitally important and powerful. I've learned my entrepreneurial spirit. I've learned to embrace it. I've learned the profound impact of personal experiences on professional success, right? They intertwine. I've learned how to community build and why community building and support is important. I've learned lifelong learning and adaptability, how to adapt to certain situations, embracing new knowledge and skills at any age of life, which can lead to unexpected and fulfilling pathways. I've learned the power of sharing one story, right? It's so important. My family used to say, why are you telling your stuff, girl? Keep your stuff to yourself. We were taught to keep things inside. And what I say inside, and not just literally inside of us, but also inside of the household, not to take it out. But I say that's toxic. When you don't take care of your stuff and talk about it, you get sick, right? It has been tested, has been shown and proven, case study after case study, that psychological trauma changes into, or it actually converts into physical trauma, and physical trauma actually reflects in your physical as well. So you can have something mentally, emotionally going on, and then you'll start to see the symptoms and the side effects in your body, right? It'll show up in your body. So you want to clear those toxins out. We talk about a lot in naturopathic medicine how the 5 principles of healing are: 2, 1, come out of fear, be forgiven, cleanse, nourish, and oxygenate. And that resets us and put us in a healthy state of being. Okay. And those are the things that I learned. I learned balance in life, and I'm still working on it and working through that. None of us will always get it all right. None of us will get it all right, period. But, or however, let me use the word however, we can do our best and then wake up the next morning and do a little bit better. Wake up the next morning and do a little better. As long as we can, what is it that as long as we can look up, we can get up. I believe either that was Muhammad Ali or it was Les Brown, one or the other. I'm gonna give you credit for that one. And then I've also learned the importance of self-care. I turned to holistic practices which underline the significance of physical and mental self-care, which is critical for my and for your overall well-being. And that pretty much talks about, I had an awesome entry from my grandson, and I'm going to actually have him on the show, and I'm going to let him read his part. He slid me a little note as I was recording the intro for the Get Trauma Informed podcast. And he said, do we have to do it again and again? I said, yes, we do. And then he wrote an amazing entry into the book. So yes, you are. He's 10 years old, and now he's a published author as well. I do want to give credit to my other authors, and also to Marcus Ogden for being the person that wrote the foreword in the book, and also for being a writer and sharing his trauma and his stories of overcome. That's the challenge when we face these types of trauma. There is the light at the end of the tunnel. So if we can again look up, we can get up, y'all. Some amazing authors here. I am going to share with you their chapters so you will know what's up and coming and what you have to look forward to. Okay, and I talked about chapter 1, A Family Secret, The Impact of Unresolved Trauma, by myself, wellness coach Liz Blanding from the USA. Chapter 2, How to Win in the Game of Life, Coach Michael Bart Matthews, also USA. Absolutely phenomenal. I am so grateful to be partners with Michael Bart Matthews and to work with him on various projects. Telling you, talk about community, friendship, associations, and support. Absolutely amazing. We're going to talk about relationship capital as well. That's another amazing topic. We're going to talk about chapter 3, Faced Defeat, but Never Defeated. Lucia from South Africa. Chapter 4, My Adversities Became My Seeds of Greatness. Sherry Pickett, USA. Chapter 5, Navigating Bullying, Pathways to Strength and Healing. Annie from the Netherlands. Chapter 6, If God Would Not Let Me Die, I Had to Learn How to Live. Tracy Witt, CARC, USA. Chapter 7, From Vulnerable to Valuable, Belinda, South Africa. Chapter 8, Road to Recovery, The Running Girl, Lemise from Lebanon. Chapter 9, My Push and Press to Greatness, Beverly LaRue, USA. Chapter 10, Beauty for Ashes, Delphine Lynn Harris, USA. Chapter 11, From a Caterpillar, Timmy Young, USA. Chapter 12, The Mind with Togetherness historically takes you where your talents alone can't. Dr. Joseph Webb, III, USA. And Chapter 13, Driven by Purpose, Rayshawn Scott, USA. And that's what you have to look forward to. Each courageous author shares their trauma story and their journey, how they overcame. And they leave valuable steps and valuable nuggets to help you overcome your trauma as well. I hope this has been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you or hearing you or having you come into our program. One thing I did want to leave you with, we do have a book study support group. You can go to oasiswellnesscenters.com, look under support groups to claim your free recovery resources and to become a part of our community. I look forward to seeing you over in our community, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.